God is interested in more than just your behaviors. Psalm 139, he put us together in our mother's womb. He knit us together. He made all of us. And in this section of Spiritual Pathway, that's what we're unpacking, how God made all of you, all the different pieces. We talked about our spirit, which is like our heart, our ability to create, passion generating place where it comes from. We talk about our brains, where the thoughts and the feelings are generated. Last session, we talked about your body and how that's our touch point for the world and how we can honor God with our bodies. Well, in this one today, we're going to talk about our relationships. And remember, spiritual formation, as we understand it, coming from Renovation of the Heart by Dallas Willard. We love that quote from Andy Stanley that said the spiritual formation really is just the process of me growing to want what God wants for me versus what I want for me. Because when my wants drove everything that I did, like step forward from the 12 and 12, when my instincts that were God-given got outside their natural function for what they were supposed to be, it left me bankrupt when I was pursuing those things outside of how God designed them to be. Well, today we're going to talk about how God designed us for relationships and our interactions with the people that are around us. In Genesis 3, in the creation story, it talks about how God created all these things, and everything that God made, it said it was good. He made land and light and dark, and he made all the animals and the birds and the fish and all those things, and all that stuff was good. There was one thing that came out of creation that God said was not good, and he said that was not good was that man was alone. God created us to be in connection with other people. And the reality for us, the truth for us is that we can't experience the fullness of relationship with God without embracing that there's a vertical piece to that and there's also a horizontal piece to that. Like that I can't experience relationship with God unless I can experience closeness or relationships with other people. There's a quote from an author named Jenny Allen that says that it's impossible for us to be intimate with God if we're not intimate with another human being. And taking intimate outside just like of a bedroom or a romantic concept or context and realizing that it's just a closeness thing, that we cannot be close to God without being close to another person or other people. You may have heard some of those sayings, right? Like if you have a good apple and you put it in a bowl with bad apples, that the good apple is going to get corrupt, or birds of a feather flock together, or maybe you can't hoot with owls and soar with eagles. But the reality, the truth is that it is not possible for us. It is not possible for us to separate our actions from the people that are around us completely. And Dr. Joseph Novitzky, in his book, If You Work It, It Works, The Science Behind the 12 Steps, he says that the two greatest predictors for your sobriety, the two greatest predictors for your recovery are your beliefs and your actions. And you cannot separate those completely from other people. Other people influence us. You've been in groups of people where the mood around them influenced you, or you've been in groups of people around where you were a part of doing things that maybe you would not have you would have not went with, that you would have not even thought of doing if you were by yourself. But the group of people you were in impacted your willingness to participate in that situation. One of the things that was crazy for me when I was first getting sober was understanding how the things that I had done to keep myself safe from being hurt were also things that ended up being things that were hurting me. I've been in a relationship with my wife for 20 years of marriage, and we were together dating 6 years before that. Like, we've been together for, I think it's almost 28, almost 29 years now. And when we would argue, or we would have like those hard discussions, my wife would say, like, I feel like I don't even know you. And that would make me angry, because I was like, how in the world do you not know me? Like, you know me better than anybody. Like, you know me probably better than I know myself. But what I've come to understand as we've been navigating and negotiating and figuring this thing out, how to live life, is that I really had built walls up that separated me from that close connection with other people. Every relationship that I had was transactional. If I did good, I deserved good. And I felt like I needed to perform for every single relationship in my life. And man, as God started tearing down those walls, but what I realized was it had worked at keeping me safe. The reason I had built those walls up was to prevent myself from being hurt or to prevent myself from being taken advantage of. And they worked at that. But they also, the unintended consequence of those was that it kept people at a distance. And what I've come to understand too is it kept God at a distance. That's why it just doesn't work when people say, well, God is my sponsor. Like, that doesn't work for us because we can talk ourselves into anything. I can get a message in my mind and think this is from God, and really it's just messages from me. And so my people know that I walk with in recovery. If they think about making a decision, the two things I'm going to ask them is, one, have you prayed about it? And two, have you got a second opinion? Like, that relationship with other people is vital. Relationships with other people is vital for our recovery. I would say that's really one of the two things you have to have. You have to have a consistent connection with a power that's greater than you. And you have to have consistent fellowship or consistent connection with other people that are in recovery. How you manage or navigate those two things, I think there's lots of pathways. But those relationships make that big of a difference. What would it look like in your life if you embraced God's design for your relationships? What would it look like in your life if you said, I'm going to take the relationships that I have and I want those to be in line with what God's plan for me is? Because you can show up to treatment and you can find people that are there just going through the motions. You can find people to agree to co-sign on whatever it is that you want to do. But if I'm bringing my relationships in line with God's design for me, allowing those people around me to impact and to motivate. And man, you think about what it's like. I say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Man, I want to be sober more than anything. And I want to be sober no matter what happens to me in this life, no matter what comes. If I want to go far, I got to go with other people. And it's impossible to think that you can be close to God without being close to other people, because God designed us for relationships.
Have you heard the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away?
I have.
Yeah. Does it work for you?
No, I don't like apples very much.
No,
Unless they're dipped in caramel.
Of course.
You got peanuts all over them.
Well, then you're probably going to be seeing your doctor more often. You're
Probably
better
so.
off not eating apples.
Maybe so.
Well, like you just told us about relationships and how that's a core piece of how God designed us to be wired, doing life with other people, but also that it's important that those are quality, healthy relationships. Mm-hmm. It's also important that the material we interact with is also good and healthy. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, over the years, it's been hard. I've picked up plenty of books that were crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to have a guide of some sort that's like, okay, this is vetted, this is a good resource. That's what we've wanted to create for you. And so in your workbook, you're going to be able to see a list of resources in the back. And some of these are laying here. One of our favorites is the Get Out of Your Head by Jenny Allen. And she has a quote that says, it's a lie to think we can be intimate with God without first being intimate with other people. And whether or not we choose to step towards God, there's always going to be a need for interaction with other people. And so how are we going to navigate that?
Yeah, I think you have those conversations, you walk into a center and somebody comes up to you and says, I was searching on YouTube and I found this guy. And it's like, first thought is like, oh no, I hope they weren't some kind of lunatic talking about whatever. It's like, anybody can upload to YouTube. You know what I mean? So, and there's some great stuff that's on there, but there's also some stuff that's a little bit sketchy. So lean into people that you trust. And it's kind of like, I think the way I'd like to do it is usually if I'm reading a book and they mention a book, I want to read that book. Mm-hmm. The same thing if you're in the rooms, right? If you try to pick a sponsor, it's like you hear somebody sharing about something and you like what they've got, then you reach out to that person. You know what I mean? So it's a good idea to maybe use that as a starting point, because Google could could not be your friend sometimes when it comes to finding resources.
That's so true. Well, and the reason I have this dictionary included in the stack is because my brother gave this to me for Christmas one year. I don't know if that was like
lame is that?
Nice, or it's actually really a sweet story as to why I got it. But bad. What this reminds me of is like the importance of definition and truth. And there is so much on the market that is related to God or spiritual things, but isn't necessarily truth. And so as our pastor always reminds us, check it with scripture. Yeah. Do not let anybody else's version override truth for you, but check it with scripture. So in the midst of all the resources, the Bible's top on that list as well. So, grab one of these, check out the list, or if you hear of something that's been a really good resource for you, we'd love to hear about it as well. But we hope that these will help encourage you in your recovery journey.